Have you ever been stuck on a decision? I mean, really stuck? And you tell yourself, I just need more time to think about it. We've all been there. It feels like the smart, responsible thing to do. But what if I told you that extra thinking time isn't just not helping? What if it's actually making things worse? Yeah, okay, let's dive into the science on this because it is absolutely fascinating. So we're always dealing with this basic conflict, right? Do we make a decision fast or do we try to make it accurate? It always feels like you have to pick one. And this tension, it shapes pretty much everything, from what you're going to have for lunch to, huge life choices. So which is it? Is it better to just make a gut call, move on, and accept that there's a little risk involved? Or should you take your time, deliberate, gather every single piece of data, and aim for that perfect 100% certain answer, even if it takes forever? This is the core dilemma we're going to unpack. Now, this whole dilemma, it's not just a feeling we have. It actually has a formal name in psychology, and scientists have been studying it for over 100 years. So let's take a look at the classic theory that's really dominated how we think about making decisions. This is it, the speed-accuracy trade-off, or SAT for short. For decades, this was basically the golden rule. And the logic, it's super intuitive, right? The more time you spend on a problem, the more info you can gather, and so you'd think, the more accurate your final decision is going to be. It was seen as this universal effect, something you see in everything from tiny insects all the way up to us humans. And this random walk model gives us a great visual for how it's all supposed to work. Just imagine your brain is collecting evidence. That's the squiggly line in the middle. A decision only gets made when that line hits a certain boundary or threshold. Now, if you set a really high, cautious threshold, those solid lines on the outside, well, it takes longer to get there, but you're more likely to be right because you've given it time to average out all the noisy, random stuff. Okay, so the speed-accuracy trade-off seems to tell the whole story. It makes sense. But it leaves out a huge, real-world factor that every single one of us deals with every day. There's a hidden cost that this classic model just completely ignores. And here's the kicker. Our brains get tired. That's it. Thinking isn't some free, effortless activity that can just go on forever and ever. It takes energy. It has a real cost. And this is what researchers have a name for, cognitive cost. And it's not just about raw brain power. It's that feeling of workload, that mental strain. And yeah, even that growing irritation you feel when you're forced to think about something for way too long. And that cost, it just keeps going up and up the longer you think. So, if that old model is missing a key piece, what's the new model? Let's check out a more modern framework that gives us a much more realistic picture by putting that cognitive cost right into the equation. It's called resource rationality. And the main idea here is that our brains aren't just trying to be accurate, they're trying to be efficient. They're constantly running a little cost-benefit analysis in the background, trying to get the best possible answer for the least amount of mental work. It's all about being rational with our limited mental resources. And really, it all boils down to this incredibly simple but really powerful idea. The true value of a decision, the total benefit, isn't just how accurate it is. It's the benefit you get from being accurate minus the mental cost it took to get there. Okay, so let's see what this actually looks like. Check out this top set of graphs. This is the classic view. The thinking benefit, which is your accuracy, it goes up and then it kind of flattens out. But since there's no thinking cost in this old model, the total benefit curve does the exact same thing. It never ever goes down. More thinking is never a bad thing here. But now, let's add that missing piece. This is the new rational view. The thinking cost is that straight line that just keeps climbing over time. So when you subtract that cost from the benefit, look what happens to the total benefit. It goes up, it hits a peak, that's the sweet spot, and then it starts to fall. Past that optimal point, you're not getting any more accurate, but your cognitive costs are still going up. The decision is actually getting worse. So this is a really cool theory, but is there any actual proof? Well, yeah. A recent study published in 2024 by Shirasuna and a team of researchers put this exact idea to the test with a really clever experiment. So here's what they did. They had people look at a grid of black and white squares and make a simple call. Are more than half the squares black? Simple enough. Now, the normal group could answer right away. But the long thinking group, they were forced to just stare at the screen for 2.5 seconds before the answer buttons even showed up. They were literally forced into extra thinking time. And the results? Whoa, they were crystal clear. On the left here, you can see that the judgment accuracy for both groups was basically identical. That extra time didn't help them be more accurate at all. But then look at the chart on the right. For workload and irritation, it's a whole different story. The group that was forced to wait felt a much, much higher cognitive load. And this little table just makes it undeniable. Judgment accuracy, practically no difference between the fast and slow groups. But workload and irritation both were way higher for the group that was forced to think longer. They didn't get a better answer, they just got more tired and more annoyed doing it. So the whole point here is that this isn't just some abstract theory from a lab. It has very real, very practical implications for how we should all be making decisions in our own lives. It really is all about finding that sweet spot. So what does this all mean for you? Well, first off, that old idea that thinking longer is always better, it's just not true. We need to start recognizing the cognitive cost of thinking too long, that mental drain, that frustration, as a real factor. This means that for pretty much any decision, there's a sweet spot, an optimal point where you've gathered just enough info. And once you go past that point, you hit diminishing returns, where the cost of more thinking is just way higher than any tiny little gain in accuracy you might get. So the next time you find yourself just spinning your wheels on a decision, stop and ask yourself this one question. Are you genuinely gaining useful, new information that's improving your chances of being right? Or have you already passed that sweet spot and now you're just racking up mental costs without making any real progress? Honestly, knowing the difference, that's the key to becoming a much better and probably a much happier decision maker.